Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Mega Man Battle Network 3 Blue. In the last part we started off the post game in full force for the 510 sub-special and now for the very late 520 sub-special. It's time for us to do more in the post game. Starting off we want to head to the basement of the hospital. He silently hands over a battle chip. And for talking to this guy we get Poltergeist G. That NPC only spawns after beating the game, but that gives us Poltergeist, which is a Mega class chip that will pick up any objects strewn about the field, namely things like rock cubes, the actual rocks, etc., and throw them at enemies for I think about 150, 200 damage apiece. It's a chip that has a lot of potential, but due to folder limitations as well as on-field object limitations, where you can't have too many rock cubes or the like, it kind of just falls by the wayside. The G-code's pretty nice, and if you use it in tandem with like folder back, you can probably get some good stuff going with it, admittedly. For right now, though, I'm taking a look at my library because we have 171 chips, but 51 Mega chips still. You might remember last time, we finally got ourselves a style change again. We have changed from Aqua Custom into Heat Team. And now I want to put the Team Style's secondary effect to good use. As well, it allows us to have more Mega chips in our folder to begin with. We get something extra good if we do very well in any given Navi boss fight. We're starting off with Gutsman because I feel like he makes a good introductory to this. Afterwards, we're just going to make a tour around the world map and go after every other Navi fight in the game. Our goal here is to S-rank the fight like we did trying to get the version 3 effectively. But we want to do that within 20 combat seconds. That time limit isn't too bad for most of the Navis. However, there's a couple like Bubble Man or the like where that can be a problem. Also, just to get this topic out of the way, last time was largely grinding in old areas to get battle chips we didn't have yet, of course. We do a lot of that this time as well, of course, but we do actually enter the post-game area in this specific video. The reason I actually structured the post-game the way I did was so that I could enter the post-game with as much of the game done as I could, so that way I could just focus on the post-game area as best I could. It makes things a little awkward here and again, but trust me, I prefer doing this to having to backtrack back and forth over and over again. So for S-ranking a Navi in under 20 seconds with a Team Style equipped, we get a Navi's version 4 battle chip. Technically nothing too extravagant, it's just another stronger variant of the given NaviChips, but that means you can get some really good damage out of already really good battle chips like the Beastman chip, like the Bubbleman chip and all that. You just need to go through the effort of actually beating them in under 20 seconds. Again, some of these are pretty easy, like Gutsman or Flashman or all that, but then you get occasional nightmares like Kingman and all that. The real annoyance here is potential time investment trying to get this in the case your folder doesn't go right or you take a hit at the last second really stupidly. I talked about this during the Battle Network 2 post-game as well as in the last part. The reason these specific videos take so long to come out at this point is because of the grinds in post-game. This video is just about an hour long, just over. The footage is about 6.5 hours long. And editing and recording that takes a while. With that said, I think I'm still relatively on track for my goal that I mentioned last time, where I want to get this game done by the end of the year. As getting a lot of the V4 chips and all that, I think puts me over one of the largest humps left in the game, especially given how many battle chips I have left to do. There's still going to be some grinds to do along the way that are going to be kind of annoying, but the ones I did off-screen in this specific session or any indication, that shouldn't be too bad all the same. For right now, though, we're over at Hades Isle, taking a brief break from going for version 4 Navis. There's something new we could do here. Notably, if you had talked to Chod at the very end of the main campaign at the World 3 base, right in front of the final area, he'd note that you should go meet him at Hades Isle after everything is over. That's them hinting that you can only really get Proto-Man's battle chip if you encounter Chod here in the area where the third round was in the N1 Grand Prix after beating the game. So you came. In that battle with Chod? Proto-Man, put him in his place. And I think the latest you first fight him in the entire series, it's once again time for good old blues here. Proto-Man's got a lot of the usual stuff under his belt, a lot of sword-based attacks, wide swords, long swords, fighter swords, the like. I think he can also still reflect your attacks back at you. But here in the version 1 fight, he'll probably seldom get the option to do that, as if you're doing this in post-game, you likely already have a pretty good loadout of good, powerful battle chips or program advances built out and all that. With that said, you're obviously going to want to do this for 100% anyway, but also his NaviChip is pretty good and also still tied to several program advances. With that said, Proto-Man's battle chip is still really good. It works about the same way it did in the prior entries. Proto-Man teleports in and then teleports in front of any enemy he can actively do that to and does a wide sword worth the listed damage, which if you're good about stacking enemies up either in their prearranged arrangements or by using like Windbox or the air cannons, you can get some pretty good stacked up damage on them doing that. I was only testing you this time. Come back when you get stronger. I'll show you a battle. Now, what Chad means by that is we actually cannot tackle Proto-Man Alpha at this point. In order to tackle further variants of him, we actively need to progress in the post-game area, so we'll be coming back to him probably next part to take care of that. Speaking of taking care of people we haven't talked to in a while, though, Bullman is still there, / Mistman if you're playing in white. And at this point in the game, with everything I've done, I can tackle up to his V3 variant and get his latter 3 battle chips, because I think I only have Bullman V1 at the moment. Bullman's final variant here can be troublesome, as not only is he pretty tanky, but also his bowling pin barrage goes on for a good while and moves pretty quickly. The thing you really need to keep watch out for trying to get like S ranks against him though is actually the bowling pins that come from below that he then rolls the bowling ball into. As if you're not paying attention, one will probably spawn right below you and you're going to take a cheap shot because of that. Now, admittedly, something I'm only just now thinking about, it might actively be easier or at least better if you're trying to get the NaviChips to wait until you get a team style to try to get both the V4 and V2 chip, as doing enough screw-ups while trying to do a V4 run is easy enough where you might just get a V2 on accident along the way. And I find that to be a lot easier than trying to intentionally get a V2 chip, as that gets just weirdly precise between having the line between getting a V3 or a V1. The fact that there's now 4 you have to worry about makes that just feel slightly easier, to me at least. And in that regard, technically speaking, if you want to get really powerful very early, getting a team style first can be very beneficial because you get some really good NaviChips really quick. I just prefer to have custom style first, as having more chips available to me at any point in time just makes things flow together so much more smoothly towards the later part of the campaign onwards. With Bullman out of the way, though, I believe I have now exhausted my stock of Navis who are in one set location, so now I need to start looking for the random encounter beta fights. These will go about as well as they probably did in the main campaign for you. For instance, Flashman is very easy, and Flashman V4 is a really good battle chip. Beastman can be an issue. The real problem overall, especially in my case now, is always going to be Bubbleman, because for one thing, Bubbleman's fight sucks. He is very hard to get around and do damage to. But also you have to keep in mind that you have to be at critical health, which I believe for my current health level is about 240-ish HP. And now that I'm a heat style, I take double damage from him, so I'll probably die in like 2 or 3 shots. In my case, I really would recommend having Undershot on, in the case, I guess Undershirt on rather, in the case you are trying to avoid dying quickly. Very quickly though, we're back at Gutsman because I'm doing something very specific at this point. I am actually grinding for something else. In specific, I am grinding for bug frags. If you kill a Navi boss fight with a counter hit, you get a whopping 10 at a time. I need about 820 bug frags, everything I want to do right now, so I just fought Gutsman about 70 times in that jump cut to get to 820 or so. In specific, I want to clear out this specific bug frag trader back from the gargoyle statue on Hades Isle, as well as the one at the lower section of Yoka 2. Or Yoka 1, rather. There's another bug frag trader back in Undernet 6 who does NaviCust programs. We'll focus on them later. Notably in doing that, though, I do get myself my first Giga Class chip, Folderback. Folderback is busted. It completely restores your folder to what it was at the start of the battle, including Folderback itself, so you get an infinite loop of potentially having a lot of program advances. Notably, over in Battlework 3 White, you instead get Navi Recycle there, which actively reuses the last Navi chip you use. So say I use Beastman V4 in the Navi Recycle, Beastman V4 would happen again. So it's a way to have 2 of the same Navi chip in your folder effectively. What's especially powerful about Navi Recycle is that there are certain program advances it'll work with that are absurdly busted, that I will talk about more down the line. For right now, though, let's head over to the Yoka 2 Yoka 1 bug frag trader, rather. I want to get everything here, but Gut Straight, Gut Impact, and Step Cross are very important here, but Black Bomb 3 is also a completely new battle chip for our library. And with that out of the way, now my next goal is to go put Oil Body into my Navi Customizer, because I'm now going to look for Flame Man Beta so I can go beat him in under 20 seconds to get Flame Man V4. Also worth noting a moment ago, because I didn't talk on it directly, we've now leveled up Heat Team to level 2, and for leveling a team style up to level 2 the first time, you get Mega Folder 1. That does what it says on the tin. It allows you to increase the amount of Mega Chips you have in your folder by 1 above the already increased amounts that team style gives you. Judging whether or not you want more Mega Chips or more custom screen slots by default, I think is going to be probably your biggest quandary when it comes to using the main 2 style changes for 100%. If you're on throwing in like the ground style, the shadow styles and all that, that really comes down to preference at that point, but I often find myself in a toss-up between wanting that extra 1 chip or that extra Mega Chip in my folder to begin with. And worth noting, you can go both ways to an extent. But if I, for instance, get another style change between now and the time I finish this LP and it's not a custom style again, I will actually have to make a choice at that point, because you may have noticed, and I believe I brought this up last time, Team Style's 4 colors allowed in the Navi Custom by default are pink, yellow, white, and green, whereas Custom Style was the first 3 and blue. When it comes to putting error codes in with the mod tools in your Navi Customizer, you can only really fix 1 error. If there's multiple errors, the Navi Custom won't let you go through with it to begin with. With that said, you can stack an error with bugs, because those are 2 distinctly different things in the context of the Navi Customizer. Bugs are when you misplace programs that actively influence how the game plays, whereas errors are them going, nuh-uh, you're not doing all that, effectively. Getting Bubble Man V4 there took like 40 minutes. Oh, God, I hate fighting that dude. With Bubble Man out of the way, though, my next destination is back here at the old TV in the Yoka Inn, as I now need to go get myself good old Desert Man V4. I am regularly changing my folder up in slight ways throughout this, like I put, like, say, Arrow 1 into my folder to fight Bubble Man and all that. This, largely, I'm not showcasing because it's just very minor edits that's going to help streamline it, and if I use the chips, you see them in the sped up footage as it is. For instance, I think with this specific fight, I ended up putting an extra water type chip into my folder. Although, you can see Metagel here also does pretty good just destroying the hands. Like I brought up last time, and you can see me in the way I ordered this post-game, a very important thing with any of these post-games is to, A, pace yourself, but also try and space out a singular task across several steps. Hence why I went after the bug frag grinding a few moments ago, technically, because that was my sort of break from getting the version 4 NaviChips, as that process itself can also just become rather tedious. You could argue so is the bug frag grinding, but at the same time, I'd argue most RPGs with post-games like this tend to be tedious in some form anyway. It's whether or not you can actually have fun in the brief moments between the tedium that makes it worth it to some people or not. Personally speaking, I think playing Battle Network post-games is largely worth it on a first-time run. It's redoing it where you start to realize all the holes in how the game is laid out and things like that. But at the same time, barring literally one exception, by the time you get to 3 Beyond, things like the collect program and all that existing really do make it a much more streamlined process compared to 1 and 2, and they just do better about that in every successive entry with the exception of 4. And even then, it still has some really good streamlining notes we'll be talking about once we get to that LP, or re-LP rather. With Plant Man and Desert Man out of the way, we are once again going after my Nightmare. We're going after Drill Man once again. This is probably one of the hardest ones to get done in under 20 seconds, no matter what. Even if you have Break Charge in your Navi Customizer, as the amount of time that Drill Man spends kind of going about dashing across the screen invincible means you really gotta time your hits in such a way where you keep him on the ground. Things like Flashman can be handy for this because you can hit him without during the invincibility frame state to get some extra damage in, but also leave him more open to further attacks. But it really depends on what your setup is and all that, what you like to use and all that. It can be rough. With Drillman V4 out of the way, though, we're now going to head back to the World 3 HQ to tackle World 3 Computer 3 again. Because I'm around here looking for specific viruses, specific chip, and a specific code. Namely, I'm here looking for the Metrod enemies, and I want to get their whole Meteor battleship in the H code. Why? Well, I've kind of held off on doing anything with most of the NPCs who offer in-game chip trades, so we're going to do a majority of those now coming up. And who I want to start with needs whole Meteor H. In specific, now that we got that, we want to head back to the editing room at the top of the DNN building. Ah, terrible. No good. This battle seems just not exciting enough. I know, we need a more exciting chip to thrill everyone. Hey, you, have you got a whole meteor H? I'd like to swap it for this Rook F. I need inspiration, quickly, before I forget. Okay, hand it over. Yes, yes, now I feel inspired. I'm the director and I'll make this show a success. And now for one of the big ones, we now want to head on over to Class 5B and talk to the only kid in here. My brother won't quit bragging about his Bubbler C. Hey Lan, do you have a Bubbler C? If you do, would you trade it for this Wide Sword C? Sure. Huh? It's not in your pack. I gotta go get that. Best place to get Bubbler C is to head back to Yoka 1 and look for a virus account around here that's 3 shrimpies, and then take them out as fast as you can to get an S rank. Flashman's really good for that, so I believe is Variable Sword as usual. Really anything that can take out 3 enemies very quickly is your best bet. There is notably also a program advance that'll likely involve Bubbler C that I have to go back and get another one of these for later on in this very video, so maybe get 2 of them in the case you want to have them both around and are doing things in the same order I am. Unless you already have 2 of them, in which case, hey, you're golden. Cool, did you change your mind? Will you trade your Bubbler C? Yes, I will. You do have one, great. I'm glad I asked you. So now we have Wide Sword C, which we can then take to the next person sequence who I already actually did an on-screen trade with. This lady here wants a Wide Sword C for a Recover 120S, which is still in my folder, or in my pack rather. Next up, we want to take that and head to the old lady just outside of the elementary school. Old as I am, I'm a battle chip collector. Say, would you trade your Recover 120S for this Dino Wave V? Oh, that's wonderful, thank you, lad. Now I have a full collection of chips, and I'm on my way to one. We next want to take that Dino Wave V all the way over to the first room, the lobby, effectively, of the hospital. My 6th son asked me to buy him a chip, but I think I got the wrong one. Hey, do you have the chip Dino Wave V? If you do, will you please trade for my Grabback K? Really? Great, here's my chip. Now my son won't be angry with me. Alright, Grabback K is sort of our end goal here. It's not a bad chip to begin with, albeit the K code's a little awkward to work with, but there's one last trade that actively involves this. And for that, we want to head back to Hades Island. Specifically, we want to go into the lava room from the second round we did in the plot section around here, where you could have fought Tamako and do a chip trade around there. I believe I actually already talked to the NPC that wants this chip off-screen, so I don't have the footage for that. Hey, Kim won't trade me after all. It's good old Jennifer. She wants a Grabback K for Zeus Hammer Z. This is the only way to get this battle chip for our library, so you're damn right we're gonna do this. Zeus Hammer is the same chip it was in Battle Network 2, only now it's a Mega Class chip. Anything that's on the ground takes heavy damage. I believe Air Shoes can theoretically help you get around that, in the case you have that chip, but ultimately pretty good. Just beware, I believe it will also damage yourself. And at this point, I'm gonna do some program advances I haven't done on screen yet. Although I swear some of the ones I'm gonna do here, I did do already in the LP. They just didn't count, probably because I did them against the final boss gauntlet for some reason. Admittedly, not the only time something like that kind of weirdly happens in the series near the final boss. Battle Network 4 has a notable instance of that I'll talk about when I get to that LP redo. Also, I should note, there's one in-game chip trade I have yet to do. It's with the girl over near the Teacher's Lounge who I believe wants a Sonic Wave W. I think if you're playing blue, you need to either use the chip trader to get that specific chip or trade it in from white, so I'll do that later on. First program advance up to bat is Zeta Punch. 3 of the 5 Gut Punch chips in alphabetical order will give you that. Invincibility for 5 seconds. And you can throw as many gut punches as you can during that. Hadoken motion for the impact code to throw a fist a couple spaces forward. Next up, we're going to do Zeta Straight, which is 3 of any of the 5 Gut Straight chips in alphabetical order. Invincible for 5 seconds, blah, blah, blah. BB, down, left, right, B for the command code here that does 3 punches in a row pretty quickly. And immediately after this, we're going to go use the Zeta Impact program advantage, which is 3 of any of the 5 Gut Impact chips in alphabetical order. Same deal, invincible for 5 seconds as with most Zeta program advances. Left B, down B for the Wild Dance command code here that does 5 hits in a row and can inflict breaking damage. That in specific does have a lot of potential due to coding from memory, but I just seldom use it because I usually use other better program advances by endgame. Speaking of better program advances, time for an old guard in that regard. Guard G, Dash G, Gutsman G in any form of it gives you good old gut shoot, returning once again from Battle Network 1 and 2, only it has still been noticeably nerfed down to 300 damage. Gutsman picks you up and yeets you straight forward for straight-on damage. Pretty good in early game, given that's a very early game program advance you can get, but by this point in the game, it's been severely outclassed, and it'll never reach its Battle Network 1 power quite again. Next up, we're going to use Big Heart, which is Holy Panel R, or in my case, Asterisk. Recover 300 R that we got from that side quest at any of the 3 roll chips. On this one, roll does 9 times 50 damage, which means you can very easily boost this up for some pretty big damage, and then she'll heal you for 300 HP. Pretty good. R code's also not the worst one to work with, so it's honestly not a bad one to have in your folder towards endgame, especially if you have a lot of attack plus chips in your folder. Next up, we're going to use Rock Cube Asterisk twice in a row within the Godstone battle chip we got from the Undernet Bug Frag trader for Mom Quake. This one is potentially very devastating, because it rains stones down for 200 damage apiece on the enemy field on any tiles they have access to. So if you use some area steals before that, you can bring the pain in pretty quickly. Next up, if you use any of the 3 of the 5 Heat Shot, Heat V, or Heat Side chips in alphabetical order, or Heat Shot, Heat V, and Heat Side J specifically, you can use Heat Spread. It's a spreader that does 300 damage that is fire elemental. So if you're on either grass panels or on a wood elemental virus, you're going to do a lot of damage with that. Next up, we're going to use another returning one from BN2 by using Custom Sword, Variable Sword, and Proto-Man B. We get Do Hero, notably different than Double Hero from Battle Network 2. Double Hero is actually now a different program advance. Do Hero notably does 70 damage a pop on every enemy panel 8 times, so with a good amount of attack pluses, that can do some real pain. Meanwhile, if you do the same program advance but throw Slasher at the start of it, we actively get the returning Double Hero, which honestly I don't think is worth using compared to Do Hero. It does the same listed damage per pop, but instead of being 8 times on all panels, it's 10, so you get an extra 140 damage out of it. You could equal that out with a better coded chip for your library that's more useful than Slasher by just throwing in an attack plus 40 or something like that. Next up, if we use Barrier, Barrier 100, and Barrier 200 all in a row in the same code, we get 500 Barrier. It's a barrier that takes a cumulative 500 damage to disappear, which is a lot of damage for normal virus battles, but honestly, for boss fights, you really should just use an offensive one at that point because you won't have to worry about the defense being a problem. Next up, if you use any of the 3 tiers of Metagel chips in alphabetical order, be it B, C, D for 1, E, F, G for 2, or S, T, U for 3, we get Gel Rain, where 6 Metagels fall from the sky and steal the panels, although notably if they don't kill the enemy, the panel is not stolen. Each hit of that does 150. In certain circumstances, that can be really good, but I do just prefer to use the Metagel chips in the same code as it is, as I find that's just generally more worth my time. For now, though, we're back at Yoka Inn. Why, though? Well, the post-game area can only actually be accessed from Yoka Inn. There's still a few program advances I can do, but I feel comfortable going in to start the post-game area now. I believe the main hint towards where you're supposed to find this outside of just exploring is actively if you go talk to some people at Undersquare, because our goal is the hole we talked to Serenade in much earlier in the LP, during the Drillman scenario. At this point, we can investigate the hole and enter the post-game area with a incredibly fancy animation. That looks really good. Welcome to the secret area. This place is pretty. I love the music. You can't jack out of here. If you ever want to leave here, you need to leave through that portal we just came through and then jack out. Our first priority is actually coming over here to this corner to fight the entire Scuttle enemy line. This is the final virus family line we need for the virus simulator over at Scilab. Proto-Man comes in pretty clutch here, though, because we can get rid of their life auras in a single fell swoop. Now, if I had, say, a wind battle chip or used some air shots beforehand, I probably could have maybe gotten them in a way where I could kill one of them along the way. But, oh well. A very threatening thing about this fight, though, is that unless you're specifically an Elect-type StyleChange, which I think is already the worst type of StyleChange in the game because of its lackluster charge shot, you're gonna be weak to something here. Be it the Scuttle's Ice Cubes, the Skuts' Fire Tower, or the Scutter's Electric Shots, you could be in danger. You might be noticing we're missing the Wood Elemental Scutzer as well as the Scuttless we've already seen in a couple of set encounters. They're not in this fight due to enemy limitations. By and large, Battle Network is a series you only see upwards of 3 enemies in a battle. Only really one game breaks that occasionally. Now, I should note, I've already obviously done some bug frag grinding this time to get the battle chips from the bug frag traders. I will eventually need to do extra bug frag grinding to do extra things in the virus breeding simulator. And I will do that, but that's going to be one of the last things I do because I want to try and get through as much of this post-game as I can while still in the team style, so I could benefit from getting the extra V4 NaviChips we still haven't gotten yet, as few as they are. With that said, I took a lot of damage in that fight, so I'm going to quickly leave and then jack back in because I don't want to waste a full energy when I'm this close to the exit. So, worth noting things about the library. Most of the remaining battle chips in the game, specifically in the standard class, are located within the secret area's random encounters, as a lot of level 3 variant viruses you haven't found yet outside of set encounters are in here. But there's also things like this, a giant monolith that seals viruses blocks the way. Maybe we can break it if we use the hammer? Now that's notably not talking about the hammer battle chip, that's talking about the hammer key item that we found all the way in the center part of Undernet 7. By breaking this, the monolith has been shattered and the imprisoned viruses have escaped. Every monolith you break is roughly a 10 in a row encounter rush against viruses throughout the game, usually level 3 variants, but there's also a couple of omegas along the way as well. 2 things about the hammer. For one thing, they do tell you you need it in order to break these monoliths. There's an NPC we'll be talking to in a few moments that actively tells you what the hammer is, where it is roughly, and what it does, so you don't need to worry about getting too lost here, rather. But for another thing, if you don't have it yet, you really should go get it, as eventually in the secret area there's going to be a monolith blocking the main post-game story route, so if you want to complete the post-game, you're going to need that. On top of the fact you're going to need it if you're going for 100% anyway, because there are monoliths that blockade some rather important items for library completion and the like. For right now, though, we're coming up on the first new enemy of this monolith set, the Brushman 2s. As the Brushman enemies level up, they generally get faster for one thing, so they'll be placing down holy panels more quickly on the enemy side of the field, and thus they'll also be placing more hazardous panels on your side of the field more quickly. But I think I'll have to see if I can find some resources on this, or at least just check my footage if I encounter more of them. I think they also gain access to more hazardous panel types, whereas early ones maybe just have like poison panels, others can place down like ice panels like that, lava panels, so on and so forth. At least I think that's how they work. And then finally, in the final encounter for this specific monolith, we get our next new enemy, the NO2s, as well as I believe Wind Omegas, which are just stronger wind enemies. NO2s move faster, they can still heal themselves if you don't take them out quickly enough, and when you're in the same row as them, they throw the paralyzing attack at you. Not too bad to deal with as long as, again, you're fast about taking them out. The big threat here is because they're partnering you with a wind here, you're going to have limited time to move around them, potentially. But if you bring in some good battle chips here, especially if you're in the post-game area, you really should bring in at least a couple of really good NaviChips that suit your tastes. They're probably not going to be that big of a problem. With that said, because these are such long marathons of enemy fights, you should save before and after every single one of these you do. In fact, that's pretty good advice for the secret area in general because of how much damage you can take here so quickly. Even compared to the Battle Network 1 post-game, quote-unquote, or the Battle Network 2 post-game area, you should be saving constantly. Also, just as a brief look, here's what my folder is looking like at this specific junction, because I've done a lot. You may pass or bester the 4 questioners. Like other post-game areas, we have doors that will only unlock if you've done certain criteria in the game. This one's hiding Step Across R, which we actually needed for a program advance. That specific door will only open if you've done all 4 of the quizzes throughout the game, like the Quiz King, Mr. Quiz, and all that jazz. And here we got, actually, a good example of what we mean by high-level enemies that can be found here. Doomers we've seen before in set encounters, but we couldn't get their battle chips because of that, so if you want to get the Boomerang 3 battle chip, you can only get it here in the post-game areas. Basically, every encounter in this area is things like this. Just to list the viruses outright, since you might be missing a lot of their battle chips, you can find Joker Eyes, which are the level 3 Sensor Eye enemies, Geetles, which are the level 3 Beetles, Metrodos, which are the level 3 Metrods, Metar 3s, Yarts, Totons, level 3 Totems, Heavyists, the level 3 of the Shake Weight enemies, Swordy 3s, Vacuum Fans, Yarts again, Ratty 3s, Ella Globes, which are especially rare in my experience, Cold Heads, Doomers, and that's just Secret Area 1. Because of the amount of battleships that you might be missing in your library here, you might want to take a moment and grind out the enemies around here using like locate enemies and all that to get them for your library and folders. I'm waiting on that until I finish as much of the post-game plot as I can, though, as frankly, I am sick of the straight-up grinding I've been doing up to this point in the post-game a little bit and want to get some actual progress in at this point. Also worth noting, because of the high level of every virus around here effectively, Sneak Run, I think, will still slightly lower the encounter rate, just inherently, but it won't be too useful, so if you've relied on that in the post-game a lot from getting to place, you might as well just throw something else to improve your survivability in there, like undershirt or anything like that. So you're from the surface, huh? Well, try not to get yourself killed around here. Trust me, I'm trying my best. Oh, and actually here we have two of the new enemies, the Joker Eyes and the Geetles. We saw the Joker Eyes already in the Virus Breeder battle we got against that enemy line earlier, but the Geetles are the third stage of the Beetle line in this one. And they are surprisingly lethal because they fire out their triple bombs very regularly and very quickly. And in this specific instance, when we're dealing with an enemy that's electric elemental on ice panels, this can get real rough real fast, as we can see there. This is why I recommend you really come in here with some full energies stocked up. Otherwise, you're probably going to do take a lot of dumb damage and take a lot of dumb deaths. Moving on, though, you may have noticed on my way down to that NPC, there was another little spire up here on this pathway. This is the other main mechanic of the secret area. And for this, I have actually slightly customized folder 2 that I was using program advances in earlier to have 2 life swords in it as a good example of how we have to handle these things. Beep beep, security system activated. Intruder detected, leave immediately. Land, do you want to try to hack the security system? Yep. Meet the numbers. These are effectively Battle Network 3's answer to the Protecto enemy line from Battle Network 2. Although while those were in invisible set encounters, you see these things on the field so you know when you're about to come into them. These are a puzzle battle. We need to take them out in order as their numbers state, but also take them out in one shot. Otherwise, they hit you with an effectively instant kill move called Error Delete that will do about 1,000 HP. Technically not instant kill, but in most cases your HP is going to be below that. Though I do believe barriers or auras might help you with that. Same with Invis, maybe. Most of these encounters have several solutions. I'm just showcasing what I find to be the most convenient for what I have going on. The important thing to note is that any damage done to them will make their attack go off if you don't kill them in one shot, same if you hit them out of order. But on that note, killing them in one shot's a little malleable. Technically speaking, things that do less damage but hit multiple times can both kill them and not, depending on the instance. Like, I think technically, say Bubble Man wouldn't be able to kill them because of how many shots there are and damage therein. But hitting them with both halves of, say, a Step Cross can kill them. Honestly, on a first playthrough, the easiest way to take these out is to save right before the battle and then go in, see what they're laid out like, and then analyze what you might need to take care of them from there. For this specific battle, I'm going to be taking out the front 2 one at a time with the 2 life swords I put into my folder, and then taking out the third one with the Step Cross. Though I believe what's in this folder technically at the moment, I also could theoretically use, say, Grass Stage followed up with Flame Man to kill them in one shot as well. It really depends on whatever you have with you and what you might want to use. But as long as you're methodical about this and actively take them out in the numbered order, you should be fine. There's no semi-timer in this fight. You can take as many turns as you want. As long as you're very proactive about not attacking them willy-nilly, you aren't going to take a lot of excess damage there. With that said, that's also going to be the only fight against them I show in full speed. All other ones are going to be sped up just because of the amount of time it takes for the chips to show up in some cases. Behind that set of numbers, though, we get ourselves another new battleship for our library, Geddon 3. That makes it so that any given tile in the field turns into a swamp panel. Can be a little self-destructive without the proper use of, like, air shoes and things like that from memory, but it has some potential, especially in multiplayer. In fact, seeing it makes me think I may have actually said Get On 2 makes it so that every tile is a swamp tile earlier in the LP. If I did say that, I was wrong. Get On 2 completely destroys every panel that an entity is not on. Ooh, Yo-Yo 3. I love the Yo-Yo line as I brought up earlier in the LP. Yo-Yo 3 is especially the peak of that. A little awkward to work with my current coatings, but I might change my folder later on in the post-game. Our Lord Serenade has set in place his great monoliths. These stones are used to seal away evil viruses. If you do not wish to die, then do not break the stones. But there is only one thing in this world which may break them. A thing which Serenade has made. It lies at the edge of the Undernet. The hammer. And that's the text that hints at if you don't have the hammer yet at the end of Undernet 7, you should go get that before probably going any further. Time for our next set of numbers, though. This one's a little trickier than the first one because if memory serves, this is where they play a little more with the numbering of them, so to speak. In specific, both of the two in the back are actively numbered 2, so we need to take them out at the same time to clear this battle, which can be a little troublesome in some cases, depending on how the arenas are laid out. But in this case, of course, just using an area steal to take care of that single panel up front and then using another life sword will take care of them both, no problem. There are times with later versions of this type of fight where they'll get a lot trixier with things like this, so keep your eyes out, and again, make sure you save frequently here in the post-game area. If there's one thing I hope to drill in throughout this post-game, it's that is something you need to do often. And also remember to swap your folder back in the case you have a backup folder specifically for things like that. 50,000 zenny, that's still a good chunk of change, albeit at this point. It's gonna go immediately into something else because we're coming up on one of the last major money sinks in the game. You may pass, O gatherer of 140 fragments of power. In order to pass this door, you need to get 140 total chips in your standard class library. The door opens. What's that strange feeling I get here? Who's there? Show yourself.
Sure. Number 9634.
Who are you?
My name is DarkMan. I am an assassin of the darkness. After I'm done with you, I will need only 366 more kills. Until my goal of 10,000. Please don't take this personally.
This guy's serious. Land, he's coming. Ready, Megaman. Battle routine set. Execute.
Prepare to enter the dark forever.
Time for our first post-game exclusive boss fight. It's DarkMan returning from Mega Man 5 in a rather sinister design. This fight is rough in that his attacks can be hard to read, especially on a first run. Effectively, he teleports all over the place, but he doesn't actually animate that much. His main attack actively depends on what color he is whenever he teleports. If he's purple, he'll fire down the fire tower ability we've seen since Battle Arc 1 that'll home in on your location, panel by panel, column by column. If he's blue, he'll fire a snowflake in a wave formation moving up and down through either the top 2 rows or bottom 2 rows. Yellow is the hardest attack to dodge because it's the sensor eye enemies laser down the row. If you move into the row while he's yellow, you're pretty much guaranteed to get hit by that. You just kind of want to move out of the row until he moves or do something that can damage him from other locations. His other ability we can only really see here in the V1 fight is this Shadow Bat technique. In doing this, he summons 3 gates that will slowly spawn in bats that move down the columns. They always move in such a way where you can easily avoid them as long as you stay towards the bottom of the row, but you really want to say use an area steal in this fight to avoid that being a problem.
You will be sorry that I didn't delete you. Just wait until you feel the dark of the Underking Serenade. Continue on and meet your deletion.
That DarkMan, he was stronger than a ranked operator. And he said that there are even stronger Navis here? And the Underking Serenade. Yeah, this area seems different from all the others. We'll need to be especially careful. I agree. And with that, we can now move into the secret area 2. But I quickly leave and re-enter, jacking out along the way, not only to heal up, but also, before I head into Secret 2, I want to tackle DarkMan's rematches for his battle chips, as doing that before certain other things could happen is preferable. For DarkMan V2, we actively want to go to the dead end I'm heading towards right now, at the effectively southern part of Secret 1. But along the way, I got into this virus mystery battle in a mystery data, and from it, I got the shot meteor chip for our library. It's just a stronger and longer variant of whole meteor and all that. Not exactly my favorite battle chip in the game. So right here is where we want to save, because DarkMan Alpha is directly in front of us. The main attack I believe he gains in his later 2 refights is that he can summon one of the shadow enemies that was in Battle Network 2 and is also in this game technically. And it will follow you around for several attacks while you're already also having to dodge Darkman's own attacks as well as the bats. He tends to use that more often than not towards the latter quarter of his health though, from my memory. So if you're good about pacing out really high damage program advances, you might not ever see it. Although you might be noticing, DarkMan Alpha is already a pretty beefy dude. The post-game boss fights are where the HP really just starts to balloon. And you really need to find some good strategies quick to help drain through it. With that said, a strategy this folder very much allows me to do and is very effective in this specific post-game, even if it's really good in all the battle networks, is area denial. Due to the existence of Metagel 1 B code, alongside how good the B code is in this game to begin with, you can lock an enemy to a singular panel and just have them stay still while you hammer on them with very powerful navis and program advances. It's a very useful strategy you're going to see me do very regularly, and it's why I still have Metagel 1 in my folder despite having some Metagel 2 and 3s. Until I probably inevitably change my folder again later on in the post-game. We'll see what happens. For right now, let's talk about Darkman's battle chip. It's a potentially pretty devastating one. It's the bat attack we actually see on the left side of the screen right now. You open up 3 holes on the right side of the screen, and bats will fly down the columns, doing damage to anything they touch along the way. Where they spawn, I think, is technically randomized, but you can do some pretty good stuff with it. Something I'm actually not sure about, though, so I'm going to need to experiment around with this between now and the second pass, is whether or not you can area deny that into being even more effective like you can, say, the Momquake program advance we saw earlier. But I'll figure that out when the time comes. With that said, since DarkMan Alpha's now out of the way, we're going to go out of our way to go after DarkMan Beta as well. However, he's one of the more elusive later Navi refights in the game. To find him, we need to come over here to Undernet 6, and I forget where the person that hints toward this is. They're probably in, like, I imagine the Undersquare BBS, or in the Undersquare itself if they're not in Undernet 6 itself. But in order to actively get DarkMan Beta to spawn, we need to have a bug in our Navi customizer. The most effective one to do this with is Sneak Run, because if you bug Sneak Run, the encounter rate increases rather than decreases. There are bugs that are a lot more harmful than that I wouldn't recommend using, but hey, if you want to, go ahead. Sneak Run is just what I recommend. But by having a bug around you also cause the shadow enemies themselves to spawn in. They work exactly like they did in Battle Network 2. They will move across the screen here and again, but their main attack is a constant onslaught of attacks that are an axe shape or a sword shape. The axe shape will attack you from behind or in front. You just need to move the opposite direction. Meanwhile, the sword will attack you from above or below. And dodging it constantly can get annoying. Another thing about that virus that's potentially annoying is that they can only be really damaged by sword-type battleships. This is another case where variable sword comes in real handy. But their battleship actually allows that same property to be applied to you, which in some boss fights is pretty good. I think they can also be damaged by some environmental tiles, because I know I do that to a later variant of them in this very part with the Lava Stage chip I have in my folder. Speaking of which, I should probably talk about that. I have Lava Stage in my folder, which is completely going against the general code I have set up in there. That's because Lava Stage is really good at taking out a lot of viruses very quickly, for one thing. But also, since I'm now a Heat-type StyleChange, I'm completely immune to lava tiles, so it's all the benefit for none of the issues that it could cause. If anything, the largest issues with it are using it in boss fights can be a little haphazard, as every time a boss fight steps on a lava panel, they get flinched hardcore, and you need to wait for their invincibility frames to end, which if you're going for high ranks could be potentially devastating. But for virus encounters, it's pretty good, unless they potentially fly or are also heat elemental, in which case you're kind of out of luck. Having said that, and having completely ignored DarkMan Beta, we now have all 4 of his battleships. And before we head back to the secret area, we actually want to take care of a loose thread from the secret area. We got the Scuttle family into the virus breeder earlier, so let's talk to this dude and actually get their battleship. Just round that out in my standard class library at this point. But also, before I head back to the secret area, I want to take care of some more program advances just to keep a interesting flow going. We're not focusing too much on one thing. In specific, I'm over here at Higsby's because we got a Raton 3 while in the secret area, but I specifically want to order the F code here from Higsby's chip order system, as that now allows us to do a program advance focusing on Ratons of the same code. Raton 1, 2, and 3 all in the same code is the pretty effective Hyper Rat program advance. It works like a Raton, only it's worth 500 damage. Pretty good stuff to have around, considering it's a really blunt force attack against most opponents. Next up, using the Step Cross R we got in the first secret area, we can now do Zeta Step 2. You're invincible for 5 seconds and can spam the ever-leveling hell out of Step Cross, which is pretty effective for both main virus battles and boss fights alike. This is also where I take care of some program advances that I swear I did during the LP up to this point, but for some reason they didn't register. I'm assuming it has something to do, as I brought up earlier, with me using them against the final bosses, I want to say. That right there is Bubble Spread. It's Heat Spread, but Water Elemental. You use 3 of any of the 5 codes for either Bubbler, Side Bubble, or Bubble V in alphabetical order. Or you can use, I think, the 3 in the same code, and you'll get the same effect. Pretty good, again. In fact, I'd say it's easier to code around than some of the other ones, but not to my interest all the same. As we just saw there, by using Fire, Aqua, Elec, and Bamboo Sword all in the same code in that order, you get Elemental Sword. It's effectively a blitz of all 4 in a row for pretty high damage that I believe also works like the Elemental Sonic Boom, in that an enemy hit by the first attack is guaranteed to get hit by all 4 effectively. By using Step Sword, Hero Sword, and Step Cross all the same code in that order, we get Evil Cut. Evil Cut has the range of a Step Sword, so you need to be away from an enemy to use it, but you end up using all 3 swords in a row with a power boost even for pretty good combo effect and damage. That's another really good destroyer for a lot of viruses. Next up, by using any 3 of the 5 main Step Sword codes in order, we get Zeta Step 1. This is one of the ones I swear I used earlier in the LP, but oh well. Just in case I haven't for some reason. Step Sword, but Zetafied, so 5 seconds invincibility, you can spam it as much as you can. Next up, another one I'm fairly certain I used is going to be Zeta Cannon 3. Any 3 of the 5 M Cannon codes in alphabetical order will give you that. 5 seconds invincibility, you get to use a lot of cannons that even do a lingering shot of damage. This is very effective against the Alpha boss fight, as I believe I showed off. And next up, by using Salamander, Fountain, Bolt, and Gaia Blade all in a row, we get technically the ultimate program advance in the game, Master Style. This is devastating. It's, I think, upwards of 10 strikes of the listed damage, which means you can really boost this up to really higher effects. And it all ends with an explosion, because that Metar only had 1 hit worth in them, though it didn't get to showcase the entire thing. But now it's in my library, even though it really should have been earlier, because I swear I used that earlier, but eh. Next up, this is one I know I used. We're going to use the Yo-Yo 2s in alphabetical order for Zeta Yo-Yo 2. Again, it's a Zeta program advance, so you're invincible for 5 seconds and can spam the thing as much as you can. Not as much as other ones with Zeta Yo-Yo, but due to the listed power of the Yo-Yo on top of how good it is with combos if you hit at the very edge of it, it's honestly probably my favorite of all the Zeta program advances, barring Zeta Cannon. So now we're back in the secret area, and just to update you on what our library is looking like at this point, we are missing only 21 standard class chips. We're missing, I think, less than 10, I think, mega class chips at this point. We're missing most of the giga chips at this rate, but we're gonna start collecting those in relatively quick force sooner rather than later, if memory serves. And we're only missing, I think, like 6 program advances, somewhere in that line? Yeah, 5. It seems like we're getting close, and ultimately we are, but there is more to this game than meets the eye, is all I'll say for now. With that out of the way, it's now time for us to progress further in the secret area and go tackle ourselves Secret Area 2, which is probably my least favorite area of the set, if only because I don't like its mechanic as much as I like the other ones, so to speak, or at least its layout. That which is real is not only which you can see. Do not forget that. So what that NPC is talking about is that this area's main mechanic is hidden pathways, usually beneath the pathways at the top of the screen. If you just keep that in mind and feel around, you'll find your way through it pretty quickly, but I just don't find this very interesting compared to the other two area layouts. Before I go further past that hammer monolith, though, I want to come down here and grab Curse Shield 1 Asterisk. That'll be helpful for a program advance down the line. And now I want to go over here to fight these numbers and go talk to that NPC beyond the way, because they are actually one of the last shops in the game. Now, I have a strategy for this fight already, but something to keep in mind as we progress through the secret area is that the further in you get, the stronger the numbers themselves get. This is now the second variant of them. And we're also in a pretty tight situation here, as all three of them are different numbers, but they're in the same column, so you need something that's pretty close range to take care of this fight easily. My preferred thing to do here is use a grass stage followed by Flame Man version 3 or 4 to take out the first one, and then use the 2 life swords, the row below the next one, to keep myself out of harm's way, effectively. And our reward for this is one of the last merchants in the game, and it's a pretty good one to get stuff from because there's some new battle chips here, as well as 3 of the remaining 5 HP memories. Outside of the HP memories, I want to get 2 things here. Airstorm 3, because I don't have that in my library yet, and Northwind. Northwind is an interesting battle chip, and that's one I actually brought up earlier in the LP during the first base fight that we're guaranteed to lose after the Flame Man boss fight. What it does is that it completely removes barriers from the battle, barriers and auras. You can also use it against the Scuttle enemies when we eventually find them to get their battle chips. If you trade that over to a version of the game that has its campaign in progress and use that during that base fight, in most cases, it'll crash the game, but there are apparently some unused texts for if you beat him before you're technically able to. With that said, it's now time to take care of this monolith. This is largely just another marathon battle of 10 virus battles in a row. Keep your distance, do what you can to stay alive, and all that jazz. You're used to marathon battles by this point if you've played along or played the series up to this point, especially if you played a lot of Battle Network 2. We are going to get at least one new enemy in here, though, in the form of the Brushman 3s. Like with the Brushman 2s, they're faster and will spawn helpful panels for them more often and harmful panels for you more often. Although the Brushmans do lose some threat when you're completely immune to at least one of the panel types, admittedly. Something that comes to mind when it comes to the Brushman is because they're such defensively minded viruses, whether or not you go after them first or what they're paired with will really depend on what your setup is and what the battle you're fighting actively is. As taking care of the defensive options first would be a wise strategy, but if you take out all the other enemies first, the Brushmen are not going to be able to really do much against you, so they're easy pickings from there. I guess it ultimately would depend on just your own personal preference and playstyle at that point. I tend to go after the defensive viruses first in a case like that. Oh, also, very finally, the mushroom enemies can't do anything on lava panels, so they're very easy pickings at that point. Removing any grass tiles in battles like that is just incredibly satisfying to me. Another new enemy we have here, though, is the Smasher. This is actually the second variant of the Basher enemy we saw in the World 3 computers. We've already actively taken care of the third variant and gotten their battle chip, the Thrashers, over the tank computer. They do the same thing. They focus on an entire row and can destroy panels pretty quickly. We can actually encounter them as a virus themselves naturally here in Secret 2. And if you want to get the battle chip for 100%, you're going to want to do that eventually. For right now, the final new enemy of this set of monolith battles is Brushman Omega. They're the strongest Brushman, plain and simple. This is a case where I do go after all the other enemies first, but that's because either they're a Dominard, which I just generally dislike fighting, or the Demon Eye, which, honestly, whenever I see that type of enemy, they're usually the first I go after, because for one thing, they stand still, which is easy pickings. But also, because of their attack range, they're one of the more annoying enemy types in the game, so they're what I see as the biggest threat, ultimately. Also, you got enough holy panels there? Goddamn. With that, though, we've now cleared that monolith, so now we have free access to the rest of Secret Area 2. Onwards and overwards. Past the monolith, we end up on a relatively quick path set, seemingly, but there are a number of hidden pathways still that aren't immediately visible we have to walk on to get either other items or to the end of the area proper. Bug Frag Trader, 300. That is a hint we'll have to keep in mind for next time, I believe. For right now, though, in this battle we got the Doomers and the level 3 of the Jelly enemies, And due to this, I finally have myself a Boomer 3 battle chip for my library. There are 3 paths on this platform. We just saw what's at the top one at the far left, so to speak. My next goal is actually the path on the far right because there's another door on this pathway. You may pass, O gainer of people's trust. This door will unlock if and only if you've cleared every single job board request in the game, so every single side quest. And for that, you get a very useful NaviChips program that boosts your HP by 500. It's rather large from memory, but if you're either lower on HP from less HP memories, or you like just boosting your HP as far as you can, that's pretty good. In this fight, though, we got 2 new enemies, the Moblos and the Ella Wasps. Ella Wasps are the level 2 variant of that specific enemy, and thus they have a Arrow 2 battle chip I'm going to need at some point. But also the Moblo here's are who have Airstorm 3 that I got from the net merchant in this area already. Honestly, especially if you're like an Aqua-type StyleChange, this can probably be the hardest encounter in this specific area. If only because between the tornadoes and the wasps, you're dodging a lot, and if you get hit, you're going to take a lot of damage, especially if you're, again, weak to them. With that said, technically we're now over the halfway point of Secret Area 2, but before we head after the boss fight, there are a couple of loose ends we're going to take care of on this end. But first we got a new enemy, a Volcaner. It's the level 2 variant of the Volcano. Pretty straightforward. Moves around in its area. If it steps on a lava panel, it heals. Fire elemental, so weak to water. We want to kill them pretty quickly, though, to get the Volcano 2 battle chip, or is it Volcano Cannon 2? Because we need that for our library. There it is. Lava Cannon 2, that's what it is. Honestly, F-code's pretty good, all things considered, for what that is. Now, there's a hidden passageway along the way around here, but I want to come up here to this monolith and take care of it before I go anywhere else, as I want what hides behind it. This does, of course, mean another 10 virus duel, but at this point, if you've gotten this far in, the 10 virus duels can be threatening just for the resource draining aspect of it. But if you're in the post-game area this far in, you probably have some good battle chips that you can tie together to make battles go pretty quickly, even if you're refusing to use certain strategies because you find them either against your tastes or you just don't think they're very fun to use. Because I do think I've seen several people in this game, for instance, who will do a lot of things but just won't use variable swords because I think they're too cheesy, and you know what? I get that. Next up, though, we got our next new enemy, the Red Devil. This is the level 2 variant of the Shadow enemy. They are extraordinarily fast, and pairing them with the totems is honestly a pretty devious combination, especially considering they're placed on panels that make them take half damage. With that said, this is where I realize, oh wait, the shadows are technically weak to certain terrain as well. They take damage from lava panels. In fact, they're actually technically weaker to it than most boss fights because they move so quickly. Behind this is a hidden pathway that leads us to Anti-Navi-M. That is technically a multiplayer exclusive chip in terms of how it works. It lays a trap that if a person uses a Navi chip, they take damage. But we're still going to use it in the main campaign here because it is part of a pretty important program advance. And in this battle of all very familiar enemies, I do end up getting myself another new battle chip. Because of the NO2's presence, I get No Beam 2. Chalking that away in the library because I'm probably never going to use it. You want to save right here, though, and swap to your subfolder because hidden beneath this platform is actually another security system of numbers. This one is honestly one of the easier ones because they're all the same number, so you just need to take them all out at once. With certain boostings, the spread type chips like bubble or heat spread can be good for this. What I prefer to do, though, is just use an area grab after using a wind to push them all into the back rows, and then use a life sword to take them all out at once. And behind them is the second to last HP memory. With that, we've now fully explored Secret Area 2's main level design. There's still some battle chips we'll need to come back and get here later, but that's no big deal. For now, let's save up and get past the door. You may pass, O possessor of the greatest power. In order to get past this door, you need to have at least one Giga-class chip in your library. The Bug Frag Trader on the Internet is your best bet for this in both versions. You, the Blue Navi, wait. You there. Let me get a look at you. I'm JapanMan, the greatest spear fighter ever. And I shall shish kebab you if you try to go any further. What's this guy's problem? Watch out for him, Lan. He looks pretty good with the spear. And I feel even more power from him than I did from DarkMan. Are you ready to meet your maker? I usually don't like to take on kids, but orders are orders. On guard. Here he comes. Battle routine set. Execute. People very familiar with my favorite classic Mega Man game, Mega Man 6, will recognize this is actually Yamato Man's NetNavi counterpart. They changed his name, I believe, for two reasons. One, for character limit specifications, but also, they just translated Yamato pretty literally, because Yamato was an old-fashioned name for Japan itself. JapanMan can be a little troublesome if you don't use a lot of screen-dimming chips or program advances, in my experience. His main attacks all focus on his spear. For instance, he can just shove it down the row, which will then shoot a wave about a few panels forward. He can strike the entire column 2 spaces ahead of him several times in a row. If you're in that, you're going to get hit with a big combo. But his biggest annoyance is actually a counterattack he has, where if you fire, sometimes he'll just spin his spear and it'll send a energy wave back towards you, and getting around that can be tight if you're really close to him. I think he can do it in this version as well. He does actively have a 4th attack where, yeah, here it is, actually, backup. He's going to summon several smaller samurai to slowly eat away at your terrain, one panel at a time. They can come from any of the 3 rows. You can try to resist this by either just piling on high damage things like throwing a variable sword down the line or all that. But honestly, your best bet is to just eat through it. I cannot believe I was defeated by such a little whelp. Serenade, please forgive me. Wow, was he strong. Looks like he was one of Serenade's followers. Wow, wonder how powerful Serenade will be. I can't even imagine. Yeah. So, that technically ends our stuff here in Secret 2 for now. There's going to be some battle chips we need to get down the line, of course, but the main thing I'm going to focus on before we end off is actually getting Yamato/JapanMan's battle chips. After walking all the way back out and jacking out, we headed back into Secret 2, and JapanMan Alpha is actively located directly behind the net merchant here in Secret Area 2. Largely, it's just an HP and speed buff, so for right now, let's actually talk about JapanMan's battle chip. His battle chip, notably coded Y because of his actual name, is the several stabs forward he does with his spear in the boss fight. But what's interesting is that it's another NaviChip that actively has a command code hidden within it to directly quote the text off of the Rockman.exe zone. While he's doing the attack, you want to press A and B alternating, starting with the A button. During the initial 3 slashes, if you got 6 or 7 buttons pressed in that time, he'll do an extra slash. He'll do 2 if you got 8 in that time. Then, during the extra slashes, if you get another 3 presses in or more, he'll tack in 1 more hit before a final attack for a total of 7 hits of the unlisted damage. This can be a very powerful NaviChip, especially if you boost that with a lot of attack plus chips. The Y coding makes it a little awkward to work around, but there are much worse codings in my memory. And as you can see, area denial works very well against him, especially if you can keep him stunned correctly by using the air cannons or the area steal stuns correctly. Only thing you need to worry about at that point is him doing area denial back at you with backup. For now, let's go focus on finding JapanMan Beta and getting the latter 3 battle chips. Notably, JapanMan Beta is one of the most no-nonsense fights in the games to find. You just need to know the right place and then proc the chance to find him, just like with Flashman Beta and Drillman Beta. In specific, he's located in the armor computer here at the lobby of the inn. Fittingly so, given that it's samurai armor. You can use Sneak Run and all that to technically boost your chances of finding him because of how Sneak Run works with enemy levels and all that. It's just a matter of actually finding him. Now, JapanMan Beta can be rough because he is extremely tanky. At this point in the game, no matter what, 2000 HP is probably going to be a lot to work with unless you're using very specific setups with, I believe if you use specifically Grass Stage, then partner it up with a highly boosted Meteors Mega Chip we got from the Undernet Bug Frag Trader, you can take that out pretty quickly. But that's not exactly my taste of doing things. Now, this is a slight bias coming through. I do love Yamato/JapanMan's design. I think basically all the Navi designs are really good, but I really think all the ones they did for Mega Man 6 were treated really well. But at the end of the day, this side of the Mega Man franchise between Battlework and Star Force just has some of the strongest character design chops, I think, in Capcom history, period, if not gaming, period. But with that and us cleaning up the JapanMan battle chips, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching. I know I've said this at basically every sub special lately. I know this is a very late sub special. This is the 521 technically because I don't want to skip any of those. I want to make sure they're all individually separated even if we're over 80 subs removed. I really do appreciate you guys stopping by and listening to my bullshit so much because it really does mean a lot that people will not only listen and laugh at the silly shit I do with edits and all that, but people think I'm genuinely being informative and my passion for these games and what you can do with them. And it really means the world to me. I know videos are a little sparser nowadays because of my full-time job and streaming and all that, but trust me, I'm not going to stop this as long as I'm able to. It might take YouTube shutting down for me to finally stop, and even then I'll probably find some other place to put stuff up. With that, in part 14, we're going to continue on in the secret area, probably finishing off a majority of what's within it in the process, if I had to guess, based on how much footage this ended up going through. And we'll see how far we get before we end off there. See you guys then.